Hello and welcome back to Make It Sick. Can you believe we do not have any Anki flashcards to do today? What? It's been like 3 weeks. It's been like 3 weeks since that's happened. Anyway, what did we read about? What did we learn about yesterday? I think we finished up the section on neuroplasticity. We would have started the section on is IQ mutable. So we learned about the Flynn effect. The Flynn effect is basically this phenomena where average IQ has been increasing since the inception of the test for the 120 years it's been now. I don't know if that's actually held for the last 10 years, but crazy, right? Why has that happened? We don't really know. Ideas are more access to cultural information and technology such as radio, internet, TV, more and better schooling, and nutrition. Those are the estimates since 1905 when the exam was created, the IQ test. Binet something. It's increased. The average is still 100 because that is the definition of 100. 100 IQ is the average score for the population. But the population's been increasing over time. So an IQ in 2014 or whatever of 100 would have been an IQ of 180, not 180, 118 in 19. What did they say? 75 or something, 60 years before, maybe 1960s. Oh, I was about looked. We have not recalled everything from yesterday. Connectome. So the Connectome was a project. I don't know if they're still going on. Similar to the Human Genome Project, the Human Connectome Project. They were trying to map all the connections of the brain, but I don't think that. I think the majority, or maybe a huge chunk, are not fixed. They change with experience and development. What are we missing here? Intelligence and IQ both are this relationship and dynamic and connection, dialogue between environment and genes, nature and nurture. The rest of the chapter after the neuroplasticity section is largely about exploring this relationship of increasing intelligence in between genetic and nature and nurture, genetic and environment. Okay, neurogenesis. Well, I'm kind of looking because I can't remember what I would have read the day before and what I would have read today or 2 days ago. So unlike the body, the brain continues developing much later and continues to change with experience through the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Whereas the physical body matures, pretty early in comparison to early 20s or late teens, maybe mid 20s. So neurogenesis, this is the production of new neurons, particularly in the hippocampus. The research or the book says that neurogenesis increases, the more neurons are created from learning, but not just from learning and a little after learning, but actually before you undergo learning. So the brain is actually knowing and preparing for learning, it appears. And then there's a difference between brain regions and circuits involved in habitual behavior and habitual automatic behavior and conscious effortful behavior. So when we're talking about automatic habits, especially around motor skills, we're talking about deep basal ganglia circuits, and we're talking about chunking these circuits together potentially with conscious thought and other regions of the brain, and so it becomes a smooth chunked connection where they're two different ideas, two different brain region circuits are connected in a highway or an interstate, that's very robust. Um, yeah, that's a okay way to say it. Right, these are two different brain regions, and we're connecting them, and it now becomes almost like one circuit. That's the idea of chunking. Reflexive. Okay, so that's it for right then and there. I'm not super happy with that recall. I think I could have done a lot better. So tomorrow when I recall, I'm gonna remember I started with basically the Flynn effect is where it cuts off and where today starts. So I'm gonna jump back into reading, and then I'll be back to retrieve in a bit. All right, guys. From the Flynn effect. After that, what do we learn? So is IQ mutable? That's the section we're in. So can we increase intelligence? Can we increase IQ? There's a ton of junk science on it. There's a ton of probably financial incentives. But a comprehensive review and a rigorous review in 2013, I believe, this is what they found and that was reported in this book. Actually, before that, Nesbitt. He wrote this book called Intelligence: What It Is and How to Increase It, or How to Get It. So he talks about all the new enriched stimulus in our modern environment that we didn't have not that long ago. For example, like the example they gave in the book, and he gave in his book, one just random example is like in a McDonald's Happy Meal, they had a very complex maze that was more complex than IQ tests gifted to children. So just stuff like that. On top of that, all the access to information and ways of learning and that we have in the modern environment that you didn't have in the past. And so an environmental multiplier such as curiosity leads to much bigger disparities in IQ in the modern age than in the past, because we have so much access to information and learning tools that if you're more curious than someone else, you can find way more you can seek out way more things and find way more resources that will later improve your intelligence or during it. So yes, I guess we're already kind of saying increasing your intelligence through that. Nesbitt's saying that the enriched environment, stimulus in the environment is what leads to increases intelligence over time that we've seen through the Flynn effect, right? So yeah, we already said, yeah, IQ can be increased and changed. What else? So after this rigorous review, they found that nutrition affects IQ. So fatty acids given to a pregnant woman, as well as when she's breastfeeding and the child itself, this can lead to an IQ increase between 3.5 to 6.5 points, especially age 0 or before birth in the womb, 0 to 5. Then a lot of the rest of it was increases in early education, environmental stimulation, talking to the children, reading to the children, asking questions, open-ended questions to the children, and asking them to elaborate. Things like this lead to increased IQ. But particularly they're shown effective and significant in children who are in poor or impoverished environments. So socioeconomic status has a direct correlation with IQ, even beyond genetics. So children born from poor parents that are adopted by, say, rich parents, just to keep it crude or quick, they have an increase in IQ just as if they were born from the rich parents. So it's really the environment we see that's most likely playing the big role, and that is the impoverished low stimulation or high stimulation is the child getting access to these toys and puzzles and being talked to and playing with other kids, or or the parents kind of whatever they might be doing, not around or working or whatever. So the extra resources of affluent families that can be directed toward the children give them a much more enriched environment and much more mental and cognitive development early on. And so one guy in this section kind of says that, you know, early education, it doesn't have a huge change if it's like a year earlier or 2 years earlier or 2 years later. It's not like this super narrow window. But then they kind of contradict this by saying that reading to a child before age of 4 increases their IQ, but reading to a child after 4 does not increase their IQ, but it increases their language development. So it's like, yeah, there is some level of like, yes, nutrition and enrichment does have a window that is most effective at increasing intelligence. Probably the younger, the better generally. Okay, anything else? Right, we just started the next section, which is about brain training. So this 2008 Swiss study, this showed that like you can increase cognitive power and fluid intelligence through brain games and brain training. Has not been repeated. So the question is, well, first of all, fluid intelligence is the ability for abstract reasoning, solving new problems, and connecting finding unknown relationships and new relationships between concepts. Can fluid intelligence be increased through brain training? We know that crystallized intelligence can be increased through effective learning. That is essentially crystallized intelligence being essentially just how much it's just knowledge. Your like long-term memory of different ideas, concepts, skills. This is your knowledge storehouse. So can fluid intelligence be increased by brain training? That's what we're going to find out tomorrow. So it's just really about that enriched, stimulating environment and early development, and all these different ways increases IQ. Good. All right. So socioeconomic, but I also noted that like, yes, socioeconomic status is correlated with IQ, but does that mean it's just because of more stimulation, or is it also because of successful intelligence? Sternberg's idea that the environment in which you're raised in, if you're raised in an environment that's higher socioeconomic status, it's probably more likely than not that family and that household values education more than a poorer family, right? Because how did they get their higher socioeconomic status? Probably on average is from education, largely more education. So they value more education. They promote it. They reward their children and put an emphasis on that to focus on. So I think there's that as well. Nisbet, yeah, environmental multipliers, right? This is the stimulation, enriched environments, plus nurturing and stimulation. Okay. Right. The idea of that fatty acid nutrition or supplement was helping to grow more synapses and these fatty acids used by the actual neurons for more neuron growth. All right, that's it for today. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. See ya.